Welcome to Codex History of Video Games. I'm Mike Coletta.
And I'm Tyler Osby.
And today we're continuing our tier list party. That's what we're doing right now. And if for aesthetics, this is video game, handheld, console aesthetics.
So last week we did console aesthetics, right? Just ranking consoles based on how they look only. And now we're going to do the same thing with handhelds.
Yeah, and these handheld, by the way, they're in our lifetime range. You know what I mean? They're not going to be super old. Because we only have so much time. We're not going to talk about the Microvision, okay? Sorry, all the Microvision stands out there. We're not doing it.
And to be honest, Microvision is F tier. There we go. I put it. We did it. Microvision.
It looks like an oversized stick of gum. No one likes it.
Yeah, basically everything before the Game Boy is hot garbage.
That's right. Boom, crushed it. Unless it has wood grain, then it's S tier.
Then it's S tier.
You know, no one disagreed with me in the Discord, so I think that means that it is S tier.
Yeah. Okay. I think you're right.
Boom. All right. Now, let's just get right into it with the classic, the perfect, the original Game Boy. How do we feel about it looks-wise?
Looks-wise,
it's bulky.
It's bulky. It's hard to separate it from the nostalgia from how does it actually look.
It's the offensive lineman of handheld consoles. It's bulky. It's blocky. I want to put it in C tier.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I like maybe we should give it extra points for being the first handheld that was actually comfortable to hold in your hands, I think.
I do like the color scheme. I like the gray, purple, dark gray color scheme.
The Play It Loud series too, with the red and the blue and the green. I had a green one. Those are all very cool too. So let's keep it C tier, I think. The original Game Boy. C tier because it was functional. Like it wasn't a detriment to hold it, but also compared to more ergonomic or more aesthetically pleasing designs that came afterwards, it's not as good. Just isn't.
All right. Well, we have a lot of Nintendo devices because Nintendo loves handhelds.
And they love putting out different revisions of handhelds.
They really do. So let's just jump right to the Game Boy Pocket because that's kind of the same wheelhouse, I feel like.
I'm gonna put it above the Game Boy. I think it's B tier. That's my...
Because it is smaller version, but has that same... I guess the same color scheme, you know. It doesn't have to. Also, they added colors to these as well. There's like green and red and blue Game Boy Pockets.
I believe my brother's Game Boy Pocket.
Yeah, my brother's was red. I remember that. So nice. I think B tier is good because they added some color to it and they made it smaller.
Yeah, and the screen was the same size, maybe a little bit bigger. I think.
Yeah, I think it's the same. It looks to be kind of the same size in the picture I was looking at, but
yeah. It's definitely a better screen. Like it's night and day when you go from the Game Boy to the Game Boy Pocket. Like the Game Boy Pocket is not like pea soup green, you know?
Yeah. By the way, I'm also still using the Game Console 2.0, a photographic history from Atari to Xbox by Evan Amos to get my images here. So if people were curious where I'm looking at some pretty high quality photographs of these.
Very nice.
Yeah, it feels pretty good. It feels good to be in the know. Well, do we want to do another Game Boy or do we want to go to something else? Like, do we want to switch it up?
Let's jump into some Sega here. Let's talk about the Game Gear.
Ooh, the Game Gear. Okay. I'm going to jump to that page.
Much bigger than the original Game Boy.
Yep.
We're not judging it based on its color screen or its ability to drain batteries faster than a speeding bullet. Speeding bullets drain batteries really fast.
It's bulky. It's very bulky. But I like the curves of it compared to like the Game Boy. It looks more pleasing, but it is really big. It's got its pluses. I think this might be... it's not like... I don't know. It's not B tier for me. It's probably C tier.
Yeah, it's not really impressive. The original Game Boy.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
But it was functional and it didn't hurt. I think I'm also kind of considering ergonomics here, or at least what I can glean of ergonomics from looking at it. I mean, I have held a Game Gear before, so I know how it feels in your hand, but like that's sort of what I'm going off of here. Is like looking at it, does it look hard to hold?
Yeah. How do we feel about that D-pad?
Oh, on the Game Gear, it's not great.
It's not great. This is not an aesthetic thing. It's not great looking though. It's not great looking. Okay. My point. Like it looks like it's not really. It doesn't have defined sharp edges on it. Is my point.
Yeah, it's like kind of a circular. It's like the Xbox 360 gamepad, which was bad.
It really is. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna say that's C tier.
Okay.
Okay, so that was the Game Gear. I don't want to go to PlayStation yet because I feel like we only have 2 for those, and I want to give those the due justice they deserve.
Yeah.
What if we jump?
Let's jump to the original DS.
Yeah, up in, I was going to say, jump forward in time. So we're going to go to this is the original Nintendo DS, which I did own, and I thought the size of this console was like perfect.
Yeah.
Like, I really thought they nailed it as far as size goes. So, this to me might be A tier.
A tier? Oof. I'm honestly, original DS, aesthetically speaking, to me is D tier.
Okay, hold on. I was on the wrong page and I was looking at the...
Look at it when it's folded close, the way that it's got like angles on the folded close. I hate weird. It.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was looking at the DS Lite and DSi.
Oh, the DS Lite. DS Lite, we will definitely be in a different place in the original DS.
Okay, let's go Nintendo DS, because I didn't own original Nintendo DS. I did own a DS Lite. So let's say Nintendo DS is D tier. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Nintendo DS, not great.
D tier looking.
Didn't
ugly.
love it. From looks. Holding it's fine. Playing it's fine, but just based on looks?
Based on looks, it's got some weird angles to it. I don't like it.
Yeah.
It looks like it's trying to be a Palm Pilot. Is that weird to say?
It kind of does, yeah. When it came out 2004, so like that would have been on the tail end of Palm Pilots, like being technologically relevant. But yeah, just
the Nintendo Palm Pilot. No one likes it. Okay, let's move on then to the DS Lite, because this is what I own, and this is one of my favorites. I'm still sad I sold it. One of my favorite consoles, handheld wise, not only looks but also use.
Yeah.
I feel like with the DS Lite, this might be our A tier for me, but is it A tier for you look wise?
Let me do a little Google here. Nintendo DS. Why did I search for Nintendo DS A tier?
It's essentially a rectangle, but it's got these smoothed corners, so when it's folded, it looks very pleasing. And then when you open it, it's simplicity at its finest.
I'm a fan. I had a DS Lite that I got shortly after I started working at Wendy's because I had money and could buy I could buy a thing.
Jeez.
Yeah, I had a little bit of money from like my first paycheck at Wendy's, and I was like, I'm gonna go buy a DS. And I didn't have a debit card, and I could only take $20 out of my bank account at a time for some stupid reason.
Gosh,
and
banks.
They wouldn't take a check, and so I actually had to save up money from the ATM, like for a few days of withdrawing like $20 at a time or $40 at a time, whatever my limit was. That was funny.
That's so stupid. They did that. It's your money.
I know. It was banks. We got that fixed pretty quickly.
All right, so the
anyway,
DS Lite.
I really like the red and black DS Lite. That's my favorite one.
Yeah,
I had a white one.
That looks cool. I had a black one, and I've talked about this before, but I sold it on Craigslist for like $80, and I regret it to this day. I should have held on to it.
I always regret if I sell a video game thing. I always regret it, so I don't do it anymore.
Yeah, there's only one thing I haven't regretted, and that was selling Battlefield 4 because I had it on my Xbox for free, so there was no point in owning it.
Yep.
But I think,
DS Lite, A tier?
A tier for me.
Okay.
Personally.
Okay.
Do we want to do the DSi?
Let's see. Is it different enough from the DS Lite?
It doesn't really look that different looking at it right now. It looks very similar.
Yeah.
To the point where I think we could just throw it in A tier, and it's like this is pretty much the same thing.
I think it's basically the same. It's missing the Game Boy Advance port, but that's not an aesthetic thing. That actually makes it look a little better, to be honest, because it doesn't have a cartridge slot at the bottom. Even though that was a removal of functionality I was not happy with.
But that's not aesthetically. Why can't I say aesthetics? Okay, aesthetics wise, it was good looking without the port.
Yeah, I'd say aesthetically it was a little bit better than the DS Lite. I wouldn't quite put it S tier though.
Okay, now then, Game Boy Color.
Game Boy Color. It was
this to me
a little bigger than the Game Boy Pocket.
Yeah, this to me is A tier. And could I tell you my reasoning why?
No, we just put it in there and you can't talk about it.
Thank you. That's what I wanted.
I'm just kidding. Tell me why, Mike.
I think, one, we talked about how much we're fans of it on the last podcast. Translucent Game Boy cases. This is the beginning of it.
This is it. This is the thing that people think of when they think of that purple translucent thing that they had that like takes them back to the late 90s, early 2000s. They're thinking of their Game Boy Color in atomic purple every single time. That's right.
Every time. And that is also like, that's one reason. But the other reason is on the Game Boy Color, and I'm going strictly off memory here, but because I don't believe there's a picture in my book of this. I'm trying to find it right now to see if it shows it. I don't think it will. But there is a bump on the back where the battery case goes of the Game Boy Color that just gives it a little subtle curve.
It's nice, yeah.
And it's nice. And it kind of breaks up the rectangularness of it. And I think that makes it very aesthetically pleasing as well. So between the translucent cases, also even the just plain color options were great. I had a purple one. It was awesome.
I had a teal one.
Yeah, see, that's really good. I wish I had a teal console. That's cool. But this is S tier to me. The Game Boy Color is S tier.
Game Boy Color is S tier. Wow.
Is that too much for you? How do you feel about it?
It is among the best feeling things to hold. While we put the original Game Boy in C tier, they're not that different. But the translucent purple, man. And I really wanted the like lime green one too. I think when I got my Game Boy Color, I actually don't remember getting it, but they must not have had the lime green
Even
one.
Just the clear gray kind, so you can see inside of it is really cool.
Yeah.
Also, the other thing about it too, it has around the whole edge of it is like kind of like a layered curved edge. I don't know how else to describe that.
It sort of reminds me of the original DS.
It's not perfectly square.
Yeah.
But I think it works for the Game Boy.
But it works better here, yeah.
Also, the little text where it says color is so it's different to stand out. It's very, very late 90s. I think this is S tier for me.
Okay. Aesthetically, Game Boy Color is where it's at.
Yes. Now,
I wish the screen was a little bigger. I think the screen's actually smaller than the Game Boy Pocket.
Yeah.
A little bit. Not much, but like a little bit.
I had so many great times with that console, though, personally. Like,
Me too.
I love it so much. I think now we can safely go to PlayStation.
Okay. There are good conversion kits for the original Game Boy Color where you can put like a brand new backlit, like really good looking screen in there and stuff like that.
Yeah. How do you feel about those? Like from the standpoint of you like them? You like that you can update this? Because I agree that I think updating older stuff to make it work better is fine.
Yeah, I like it. The only time it bothers me if it's something that's extremely rare and like the original version of it is like kind of hard to come by, and if you're gonna like strip it apart and like make it not the original thing, that kind of bothers me, especially for older consoles that like you can play these games another way. You don't have to play it on your tricked out Game Boy. There are better ways to play it, like emulation or whatever. That bothers me a little bit, but Game Boy Colors, there's no shortage of them. We'll be mod away, I say.
All right, I like it. I like that attitude. It's weird how I have that attitude towards handhelds, but I don't have that towards my N64.
Yeah, you're like, no, stock. Got to be stock.
Like, got to be stock. Got to leave it there. Even though I bet you that'll change in a couple of years for me. I'll be like, it's time. It's time to take this thing to the next level. But with EverCarts and everything too, or EverDrives, excuse me, it really changes the whole game for those.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into PlayStation land, into PlayStation Portable land specifically. Yep. And we have two models here. I just added one, the PSP and the PSP Go.
Okay. There were several revisions of the original PSP. There was the original one, the thick boy. There was the PSP Slim, and there's the third one, the PSP E1000, I think.
Okay.
I want to say that they're mostly the same, although I do think the PSP Slim looks better than the original PSP.
Well, to me, the PSP, it looks good, but it just kind of looks average to me. It doesn't look super fancy. So I was thinking the PlayStation Portable could be our C tier, just the base PSP model.
Gonna hard disagree. I love how the PSP looks.
Really? Okay. Yeah. So what do you want to put it at?
I want to put it at A tier.
I feel like it has too many buttons. Like it's busy. It's too busy up front.
I love that.
You know, someone said that we should both bring our own separate lists and compare. And then I think it was Mo that said that. And then I said, why do you want to tear us apart like that, Mo? Why are you trying to
That
break
would be
up
interesting
the
to see the big differences when we're not discussing it.
Let's try that with another list. We'll try that again some other time. But I also
Okay.
like working on these with you. So you want A tier. I said C tier because I think it's
we
busy.
meet at B tier.
That means we have to meet at B tier. That's the laws of negotiation.
Original PSP. Okay, original PSP. The shapes of them are all very similar. The Slim is a little bit skinnier. The disk drive's a little bit different. It could charge off of USB, which was pretty cool.
That is cool. It's important. All right. Well, what do we think about the PSP Slim? That one, to me, I think that could go A tier. That seems better to me. But what do you feel?
I think it's too similar to the original. Now that I'm looking at them both sort of side by side, I'm like, they're basically from the front. They're basically the same. I would rate it higher, relatively speaking, because it's thinner and that's a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. But
it's not that much slimmer, is it?
It's not that much slimmer, and I don't know if it's enough slimmer that puts it another tier above the original.
Let's put it in the same tier. Let's put it in B tier.
Okay.
Now, what's the deal with the E1000 other than it sounding like a Terminator? What does that bring to the table?
Kind of more
Not
of the same,
much.
to be honest. Yeah.
It looks like they kind of make it a little curvier.
Yeah.
On the sides.
It's a little bit sleeker. Still not enough to be a tier above. What do you love?
I love the little hole in the bottom left for like a lanyard. So
yeah, they all have that.
I know. I like that as a look. I think that's cool.
Yeah. I had mine on a little like lanyard thing too, and I don't know why. I didn't do anything with it.
So you don't throw it into your television like a Wiimote, you know?
Obviously. When I'm throwing my PSP
Yeah,
around.
when you casually play PSP catch with your friends and you throw it around. Yeah. I think this should still be a B tier, not A tier, B tier, because it's still.
Yeah, I don't think it's different enough. I almost regret breaking them out now because they're not different enough to put them in different tiers.
Well, here's the one that's really interesting to me that is very different among the PSPs, and that is the PSP Go. Have you seen this recently?
Well, I have seen it fairly recently. PSP Go.
Here's the big part of it that's different. There's minimalist buttons on the front. It's smaller. It does not have an optical drive, but it has that flip, like that screen shimmy that early 2000s phones had.
Yeah, where the keyboard slides out of the bottom.
Yeah, but it's the D-pad and the PlayStation buttons slide out of the bottom, and you slide it up.
Yeah. When did this come out? March
2009. It's a variant model from 2009.
Wow.
I'm reading out of the book here. Remove the optical drive in favor of a 16 gigabyte internal flash memory. Yeah. So this must have been right before the Vita.
Yeah, and this was that was a controversial decision, as I recall, because people were like, "What if I buy this? I have all these disc games." Like people loved carrying around their freaking PSP discs, right? Like nobody loved that. But there were games that, like nowadays, everything is digital. Like you can buy a disc for your Xbox, you could buy it digital. Every single game is digital at least, right? And then most games also have a physical form. That was sort of flipped in the PSP days with the PSP Go. So it was like everything came out on disc for the most part, except for like smaller sort of arcade games. But there were games that were out on disc that were not available to buy on the PlayStation Store. Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep included. That's how I know this. And there was no way to play that on your PSP Go without hacks, of course. That's not aesthetics, but it is a little bit interesting. That's all.
It's still important to know. I mean, we are a video game history podcast, and I feel like you just spouted a little bit of history there.
Yeah, and I think the lack of optical drive does put it a bit, like aesthetically speaking, whether you agree with the decision to do that or not in 2009, aesthetically speaking, it looks better without it.
Yep, A tier.
I'm thinking A tier. PSP Go.
A tier. Love it. All right, let's go to Atari Land. The short-lived Atari Lynx. Let's talk about this, because I would describe the look of the Atari Lynx as the hoverboard from Back to the Future. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
But it is skateboard shaped. I don't know how I feel about it. I kind of like that giant speaker on the right side, but I feel like it's weird to put a speaker right where your hand's going to be, so it blocks it.
Yeah, your hand's just going to cover it up.
It's weird because I feel like I'm getting the feelings of the PS5, where I hate it, but I love it. You know?
Oh, okay.
Like I like, it feels like a piece of its time, but I also feel like it's kind of ugly, but in an endearing way.
Yeah.
It might be D tier though. It really should be D tier, I think.
Yeah, it's I don't like it. And I don't even like it from like I like how the PS5 looks, like you said, like even though it's like kind of over the top and like kind of gross and maybe won't age very well. But with the Lynx, I think aesthetics are more important in a handheld.
I agree.
Not just for ergonomics, but like just like it needs to like there's a something to being like small and like fun to look at that makes it fun to carry these things around with you in a way that like I don't care what a console looks like because I'll just shut up behind a door anyway if I can't look at it, you know?
Yeah, Atari Lynx D tier, but it does have some qualities of like a pug where it's ugly in a cute way. It's got that kind of thing going for it.
Yeah, okay, D tier. D tier it is. Atari Lynx.
Sorry to all you pug dog fans out there. I do love pugs though. I mean, that's what I'm saying. They're just ugly, but it's cute. They're so ugly. All right, so the Atari Lynx D tier.
D tier.
What do you say we just completely finish out the DS with the DS XL?
Okay.
Just get
DS XL.
Just do the DS XL right now. Just get it all done. You know, just be like, hey, we're out of here. Nintendo DS until we get to the 2DS and 3DS.
So from a practicality standpoint, I like the XL the best because it has the biggest screen. I think that's very cool. To be quite honest, though, the bigger screen means the whole thing is larger, and I don't like that.
Yeah, it looks really too big.
It's almost too big to be carrying around like in your pocket, almost.
Yeah, and there's so much empty space. Like when you look at the console itself, because it has to be so big for these screens, there's so much space in between all the buttons, like too much space.
Yeah.
I think I don't want to put it at do you think there's another Nintendo console I want to put in F tier. So I would put this in D tier, and it's not as bad as that one. So I would put this in D tier.
I would argue for C tier because I do think it is a tier above the original DS.
Okay, sorry, I'm just being ruthless, but let's go C tier then. Let's go C tier. You know my ruthless bad boy attitude on this podcast.
I do, yeah, I know, and so I have to rein you in sometimes.
Yeah, you do. I'm kind of a renegade in that way.
Yep.
Okay,
you're a loose cannon cop on the edge who doesn't play by the rules.
That's right. Drinking black coffee, talking about the how the city's falling apart in my noir Nintendo aesthetics detective story. Okay, this joke ran its course. Let's just go right into the 2DS that I hate. Let's go.
Oh my god. The original 2DS is true trash tier, maybe the worst thing on this list.
It was when it came out. That's the only console I think I've ever said out loud that is ugly. That is an ugly console when it came out.
Yeah. Okay. So for those of you who are unaware of the original 2DS, you know how the DS and the 3DS, they fold in the middle. It's very nice, a nice satisfying click to fold it up. Imagine you couldn't do that. Imagine that your DS was just a large slab the size of an unfolded DS, but could not be folded. It's gross and it's inexcusable, and I don't know why they made it.
It's gross. No one likes it. I'm looking at it right now. It's just so bulky. You look at it because in this book they have like the torn apart view where they like piece it all out and kind of expand it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a big board. It's like just all underneath. It's just a giant motherboard that it's taking up the whole space.
The thought process must have been, we want to make a DS for little kids. They don't care about 3D, so we want this to be as cheap as possible because we want parents to buy it for their kids. They don't care about 3D. Take the 3D right out. That's fine. I don't disagree with that decision. The 3D and the 3DS is pretty gimmicky and not great. Then they thought, well, you know what breaks on DSs and our 3DSs? The hinges. Little kids break the hinges on it all the time, and the thing's basically worthless once the hinge is gone, right? I don't disagree. That's probably true. So their solution then was to just be like, well, take the hinge out and just make it a whole unfolded 3DS and call it a day. And so now it's like huge and like can't fit in a kid's hands, certainly doesn't fit in a kid's pocket. So now the parent is stuck carrying around this monstrosity in whatever bag that they're carrying around. And so now you've made something that the kid can't hold and the parent doesn't want to carry and is not aesthetically pleasing in any way. F tier. Gross.
F tier. Gross. Grossest console on this list, easily, without a doubt.
Yep. At least the Microvision and the Atari Lynx, we can at least look back and say, hey, handhelds didn't really exist at the time. We were still figuring it out. It's at least excusable, right? 2DS, not garbage.
Why are things directed towards children ugly in this sense? Because I think about Leapfrog consoles or the Leap Pad or whatever. We should do a whole episode on those, but they don't look good.
Yeah, I think the answer there is probably like they sort of gravitate a little bit more towards like bubbly and bright colors for kids rather than the actual shape of the device being pleasing, because I think a kid doesn't have a well-developed sense of style yet, and so they don't actually care about how it looks. They just want the bright colors and the like bubbliness to it, I think. Like that feels inviting to a child, probably.
Yeah, that's got to be it. They're appealing. You know, I bet you they do all sorts of focus groups for those too, and they're like, yeah, this is what it is. All right, let's jump back in time. Let's go to the Game Boy Advance.
The original Game Boy Advance. Aesthetically speaking, it was kind of new. Not to say there hadn't been horizontal handhelds before. Obviously, the Game Gear, the Nomad, the Lynx, all horizontal handhelds.
I like the shape. And you can get the translucent shell for this as well, which makes it...
It also came in atomic purple.
Higher for me. I had a white Game Boy Advance that was like this, which in retrospect was kind of bad because it got all the dirtiness on it. It showed all the dirt.
I agree. I had the same problem.
I like the buttons.
Yeah.
I like the screen is big. Shoulder buttons look good. I want to put this higher than normal. I feel like that's how this one goes for me.
Okay.
It goes up higher than normal. I don't know if it's like A tier. It's kind of more B tier, but what do you think?
I think I could give it B tier. It's sort of like a proto PSP a little bit. It's fun to look at with the lens of like knowing what time period it came out in. If it came out today, I wouldn't be a huge fan of it, but knowing the time period. Also, I'm biased because I have nostalgia for the Game Boy Advance specifically because it's the first handheld that I bought like on launch day. Like I got excited for it, knew it was coming out. I saved my money so that I could buy it on launch day. And so like holding it was like very satisfying for me as a kid. And so looking at it, I get those happy feelings, even if maybe objectively speaking, aesthetically, it's not great. So maybe we throw it in the B tier.
I'm fine with that. B tier it is.
All right. GBA in the B tier.
Do we want to go right to the SP?
Yeah, let's go right to the SP. And I'm telling you now, this is an S tier.
You know what's funny is when I was thinking about what you were going to pick on this, I thought it could go either way. I didn't know you would go S tier. Do you like the folding look of it?
Love the folding look. The click it makes when it folds is very satisfying. The screen was great, especially if you got one of the later ones with the backlit screen instead of the frontlit screen.
Speaker in the middle.
The screen is incredible. The buttons, and this is maybe not an aesthetics thing, I guess, but the buttons are a little like shallow and clicky for me. I wasn't a huge fan of that, but aesthetically speaking, I think they look great. Reminds you of the original Game Boy, which I know we put in C tier for its aesthetics, but I think the throwback and nostalgia of the SP looking a little bit more like an original Game Boy or Game Boy Color, like elevates it, even though we didn't particularly like those. So that's my thought. S tier. I think it's great. I think it looks awesome because it fits in your pocket perfectly. It unfolds very satisfyingly. It feels good to hold. It's cool to look at. The colors are metallic, like the cobalt blue and the red one, and I had a silver one. Love it. Kind of wish I'd gotten the blue one, though. I like the blue a lot.
I have the Nintendo one, the one that looks like an NES.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's a very cool console. I got it from a friend. He just gave it to me. He didn't want it, and it's one of the best gifts I've ever gotten from someone because I still break it out and play it. I play Super Mario World on it, and it feels great. It's just a good console. S tier, agreed, 100%. I thought I might have to fight you on that. I was kind of worried.
Oh, no. I love the GBA SP. Maybe my favorite handheld just because of the great library the Game Boy Advance has, the awesome aesthetics that the SP has, the but like the more modern feeling backlit screen on the later GBA SP makes it like just my favorite handheld probably of all time. Really, really love it. Like older handhelds are great too, but you're really hampered by the lack of a backlit screen. Like when you fire up your old Game Boy Color, it's hard, man. But an SP you can fire up today and have a great time with.
Yeah, SPs are great. I think that's kind of what the model of look for newer handhelds kind of go for, because you see a lot of folding ones in these newer off-brand handhelds, and I like that a lot. Let's jump back to Sega Land.
Okay.
And go to the Nomad.
Ooh.
And the Nomad is rough for me. It's
yeah.
It It doesn't look great. It looks very plain. It looks like they just kind of slapped it together.
Yeah, it's just a rectangle. You just hold this giant rectangle that the cartridge sticks out the top of, which is also a problem with the Game Boy Advance if you're playing older Game Boy games, but I don't count it against it because they're older,
they're backwards compatible. Yeah, this is like the way it's supposed to be done, is it has it sticking out the top.
Yeah, and the older or the GBA cartridges themselves, the smaller ones, they're aesthetically pleasing on their own more so. So I don't count this against the GBA. I do count it against the Nomad because, like you said, this is the way you're supposed to play it, with the cartridge sticking out of the top.
I'm trying to find if this is in the book. It might be under Genesis, the Sega Nomad, because it's considered a Genesis.
Yeah, that was cool. The idea for it was cool. A portable Genesis is what it is, and that's awesome. You can even hook it into your TV. It'll also take a second controller as well. You can play multiplayer on this thing. I'm not knocking the Nomad as a whole, but aesthetically speaking, this thing is trash tier. Garbage. Hate it.
Yep, let's go F tier. F tier for you.
Yep.
Sega Nomad. You look bad. You don't look bad. Good.
Yep.
We're here to judge you by your looks, and it's not good.
That is exactly what this episode is. We're judging everything by their looks. And while the Nomad was a very cool idea, and I would have even probably, if I were myself now, but in that time, I would probably buy one. But not because I think it looks awesome, but because playing Sega games on the go sounds awesome.
Alrighty. We did Sega. Sega's done. That's all the Sega consoles we have. Sorry, everybody.
Oh, we got one more.
We do?
We can talk about it now, or we can talk about it later.
Let's talk about it now. I'm excited to talk about it.
There's one Sega handheld that is worth talking about, and that is the VMU from the Dreamcast controller.
Oh, yeah. We forgot to put it on the list. Thank you for adding it. Good call.
Because it pops out, and it's a handheld on its own. So I think it's worth talking about briefly. We can just like quickly sort of rank it, and I think it's D tier. It's not particularly aesthetically pleasing, but it's not offensively bad like the Nomad.
Yeah, it's very functional.
It's very practical. Yeah, very functional.
I'm looking at a picture of it right now. I think that's cool they added that in there. Let's I think D tier is okay for the look of it, because it's very bleh. in a word. I know that doesn't describe it very well, but bleh is fine. Yeah,
it doesn't look particularly great, but it was cool and worth talking about at least.
Before we jump forward in time to the PS Vita and the Switch Lite and the DS, the 3DSs, let's go back and do our final old Game Boy, and that is the Game Boy Micro. Okay. And let me tell you what, I don't think this looks very good. What do you think, though?
I am in full agreement with you. I think it's one of the rare times that this kind of thing can be too small.
Too small.
Doesn't play original Game Boy games, which maybe we shouldn't judge it on because that's not aesthetics, but...
It's only Game Boy Advance games?
Yep.
Yeah, I think Game Boy Micro is D tier.
Yeah, this is when it came out after the DS. I think it was sort of a last-second cash grab of like, how can we get a little bit more money out of the Game Boy Advance from like kids? Because this is really good for kids because of how small it is. It fits in everybody's pocket, and kids don't care about how small the screen is because they have small eyeballs. So actually, they don't. I feel like people's eyes don't grow.
People's eyes don't grow? They're always the same size?
I think that's true.
I mean, this is not an anatomy podcast, so that would make sense. We don't know. If you know, send us an email at codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com.
That's why babies always seem to have such big eyes, because they're proportionally speaking, they are big.
I got to Google this later. I need to know. Okay.
It's why we're hardwired as humans to find things with big eyes to be cute. You know, you look at like the little bush baby, their eyes are gigantic. They look cute.
Kitty cats.
They remind us
of
babies.
Cats have big eyes sometimes.
Yep. Anyway.
Did you know if you want to get an
anatomy
inbox
podcast
Game Boy Micro, it would cost you $593 on eBay?
Oh, wow.
That is not worth. I've never seen something more not worth in my life.
You can get, this is not an official Nintendo product, I'm just seeing this on Google Images. There is a wood grain skin you can get for
Never mind.
the Game Boy Micro.
Take it all back. Take it all back. It's worth $600. I'm getting one.
S tier. Put this right at the top. The faceplates thing was pretty cool. And I feel like the Game Boy Micro was the only one that did that. I think it did have official like faceplates, right?
Yeah, in that case, the faceplate might have redeemed it, but that's what redeems it and makes it not F tier, is that it has the faceplates.
Okay.
Like that's not enough for me to push it into C tier. I still think this is a D tier console. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think so. I don't really like how it looks. I think it's too small.
Okay, let's jump I don't think we should do this one. What do you think? I'm highlighting it right now on our list. I think that's just too many. It's just too much.
Oh, we don't have to do them, all of them. I think we just rank them as a whole.
As a whole? Okay.
Yeah, because they're all kind of shaped the same.
They all kind of look the same. Tyler's got an interesting one on the list. Let's just do it now. It's in, this is Tyler's words. All those old weird handhelds from Tiger. That's what they are.
I'm going to put them in F tier. I think they're garbage, but just as a whole, I know they all look a little different. Like not every single one's the same, but on the whole, they're pretty bad. They're pretty F tier, if you ask me. All
right, yeah, they're did you say F tier?
F tier, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I mean I get that because they all like look just real cheap. Like that's the look of them. Like you can see how easy it is for the plastic to break when you look at these. So F tier it is. I agree.
Tiger handhelds. Yep. Okay. We don't have to do all of them.
I have a Batman the Animated Series one though, and it's so cool to me, and I will never get rid of it. I took the batteries out to protect it from corroding. I just keep it. It's a little memento that I'll never get rid of.
Send me a picture sometime next time you pull it out.
Oh, I'll do that right after the podcast.
I had a Spider-Man one, but it's probably gone.
They're great. Okay, so that's done. So now we're kind of up in the modern era here now with a lot more of these. Mm-hmm. I think we should just kind of go in the same order of like time. So we got the PS Vita or the 3DSs. What do you want to go with next?
Let's look at the PS Vita first. I'm going to Google that so that I have an accurate representation of the PS Vita. There were 2 revisions of this, but I don't think they're different enough to rank.
See, and this one to me looks way symmetrical. It looks good. It looks very symmetrical. They put the lanyard holds on both sides so you can choose based on if you like righty or lefty.
It looks like an updated PSP.
In a good way, though.
In a good way, yeah. I like it.
I like it a lot too. I kind of wish I owned a Vita. I don't know. They don't. Do they sell these new still?
No,
they don't sell these new.
They don't sell them new still. You can get them.
I was confused because I see it on Walmart.com as one of the options. So I was like, do they sell these still? Oh, they must be a refurb or something.
They're very hackable, which is nice. And there's like a pretty cool software scene, like homebrew scene for them. The only thing that's like the downside now is that the hardware is 10 years old. So while it was like really, really good hardware for the time, it's not great anymore. But there are still some people who are like really diehard PS Vita. Like that's my emulation device. And I don't blame them.
Yeah, in that case, I want to put it up high. I want to put it up A. I don't know if it would be S, but I think A is good.
It's not S tier. It is definitely better than the PSP and Slim and like all the original PSP designs. Is it as good as the PSP Go? I probably would rank it lower, but not much lower.
Yeah.
And Vita means life.
That is true. Vita means life. All right. Yeah. In this case, then let's move on to the 3DS.
Okay. The original 3DS.
The original 3DS console.
It has a little bit of the original DS in it. Like it feels like a first revision. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. It's definitely a better first revision than the original DS was.
Yeah, by far. I agree.
The edges are a little sharp for me. From an aesthetics perspective, I don't really like it. I have a blue one, and I think it looks kind of gross. The blue coloring is not great. But there were other colors, so maybe we don't necessarily need to judge it on that. But I'm not a huge fan of the original 3DS look.
Yeah, I'm not really either as far as the look goes. So I would say this is D.
Okay.
Or should we go C? Is that too strong, you think?
Let's be too strong. Let's give it a D.
Let's be ruthless because I want to put the 3DS XL up higher. This is the case for me where I think the XL is better.
Yeah, and there's also the new 3DS, which I do think is better looking. And the new 3DS and new 3DS XL are kind of, I think we can.
And I have a new together. 2DS that is Pikachu themed, and that makes it up really high for me.
I think the new 2DS is probably my favorite of the 3DS family form factors.
Yeah, I'm glad I bought one. I've only played like 3 or 4 games on it and beaten them, but I'm glad I did because I love it so much.
Yeah. Does it come in form other than XL, or is that the only way to play to get a 2DS?
I think it only comes in XL, the 2DS, the new 2DS.
Okay. I think you're right.
It's an XL only.
I love how it looks. It looks like an iPhone clamshelled onto like a weird looking Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, and I didn't want the 3D for me, and I bought it actually when I was about to leave Los Angeles. I remember buying it then and playing Pokemon Ultra Moon on it, and just it just it filled my heart with joy. It's just a good looking console. It's fun to have. The Pikachu look is cool. I kind of want to put the 2DS XL up in S tier, but that's just because of my own opinions. That's not, it should be more like A or B, probably.
I mean, your opinions are what we're talking about here. I'll agree with you. This is my favorite of the 3DS family.
Yeah, let's put it in S then. Let's do it. Let's S tier it up.
2DS XL. Loving it.
The opposite of ruthless.
Yeah, there's the new 3DS, which does look a bit different from the original 3DS. I like that the buttons have like the Super Famicom coloring on them.
Yeah.
For all of the 3DS, new 3DS family.
Oh, I do love that. That makes the look so much nicer.
The edges are a little bit rounder. I know it looks very similar to the original 3DS, and maybe I'll catch some flack from people who are like, they're basically the same thing. But I actually really like the new 3DS a lot more than the original 3DS.
Do you want to put the new 3DS at A?
Yeah. Because it's not quite 2DS XL, because I just love the way they finish rounding the corners on the top half of the new 2DS XL. So it feels like two separate things coming together in a way that like new 3DS feels almost like the original 2DS that you can fold, which I'm not a huge fan of. So new 3DS, A tier, because it does look great. I still think it looks great.
Agreed. Okay,
new
so
3DS.
Now we're in modern day. We have two modern handhelds here. We have the Switch Lite and we have the Steam Deck. Now, where do you want to go first?
Let's do Steam Deck last. So Switch Lite.
So Switch Lite is next. And Switch Lite is pretty great looking to me. I like this console a lot.
The simplicity is nice. It's pretty small, but it's also big enough to feel like a good handheld today. Like handheld aesthetics have sort of gotten bigger and bigger over time as screen size has become less of a limitation from a cost perspective, and also just as like from a size perspective, like a larger screen doesn't take up as much internal space as it used to. So like screens have been able to get bigger while not proportionally getting or making the device itself bigger, although the devices themselves have gotten bigger as well. I love the Switch Lite. And the only reason I don't have one is because you can't hook it up to a TV, but that's not what we're judging on today.
Yeah.
So
we're just doing it on looks. And we should also talk about the original Switch as well, because we did it dirty last episode with the console version. So yeah. I personally think the Switch Lite is A tier for me, and the Nintendo Switch is B tier for me.
I'm with you. I'm with you all the way on these. Original Switch.
This is the Switch that's the console
judging the
version
aesthetics of the original Switch in handheld form.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. It's a little less put together than the Switch Lite, which makes sense because like the controllers are modular on the original Switch, which is great, and I wouldn't necessarily trade that away for aesthetics. But if we're judging on aesthetics, I got to give it to the Switch Lite.
That's right. I think we're gonna do it that way then, and have that there. So we have one left, and that is our friend, the Steam Deck, which I don't own one, and I only am I've never actually even seen one in real life. I have to just go off of pictures.
I have a Steam Deck.
So I want to know what you think, because you're the expert here, and I'll kind of bounce off of you here.
From a looks perspective, the Steam Deck is F tier. I think it's gross.
So glad you also think it's bad. Okay, because I also thought it was bad. I wasn't going to go F. I was going to go D, but we could throw it in the F tier. That's fine with me.
I'm going to throw it in F tier because I'm not going on ergonomics is like something we kind of are talking about here. It does feel good to hold, but from a looks perspective,
it's too busy.
It's too busy. There's too much going on here. It's too wide. Like from a looks perspective, it's too wide. It's also too wide from a physical, like this thing is just too big perspective. But like looking at it, I'm just like, ugh, I don't like it. It's gross, and it's a first revision, and I have faith that probably the second revision of a Steam Deck is going to be like a lot more sleek, a lot cooler. The Steam Deck makes up for it in features, like what it does, like makes it totally worth it. Like I wouldn't not use it just for the aesthetics, but the aesthetics are bad.
Yeah, the aesthetics are bad in this. F tier, agreed.
Yeah, as much as I love, I will talk about my Steam controller all day long. Put it in the S tier of controllers, as you recall. And I love my Steam Deck. It's not, looks-wise, not it. This ain't it, Chief.
This is a pretty wide range of tiers today.
Yeah. We did a pretty good job spreading it out.
Have you noticed that? Like usually we have a lot more in C and B, but this time we have it really spread out, which I like. So
Yeah.
Tyler did the recap last episode, so I'm going to do the recap this episode, and then Tyler's going to read an email. Okay. So
Okay.
here. I'm sorry, I'm telling you what to do. I'm assuming you're okay with that. So here we go. F tier. We have the Microvision. If you look at it, you'll know. Nintendo 2DS, Sega Nomad, Tiger Handhelds, Steam Deck. D tier. Nintendo DS, Atari Lynx, Sega VMU, Game Boy Micro, 3DS. C tier. Game Boy, Game Gear, DS XL. B tier. Game Boy Pocket, Original PSP, PSP Slim, PSP Street, GBA, Original Switch. Is the PSP Street the E1000?
Yeah. The official name for it was the Street. And that was like E1000 was like the Sony model number. So Street is more accurate, I think.
A tier, DS Lite, DSi, PSP Go, PS Vita, new 3DS, Switch Lite. S tier. This is what Tyler and I love. Here we go. Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advanced SP, 2DS XL. Yes, they're all Nintendo consoles in the S tier. And no, we do not regret a second of it. We completely agree with this list. This is our list. We feel good about it.
Yep, feel good about this list. If you don't and you think it's dumb, please tell us.
That's right. You can send us an email at codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com, or you can add us on our Discord, and we will respond. I respond when people add us. I feel bad I'm not on there enough, but I do respond when people add us. I did make the Tyler's Tech channel.
That's true.
Did you see that?
I need to go in there and talk more.
Tyler's Tech Talk.
Tyler's Tech Talk, yeah.
That's your side podcast that's going to take over and beat our podcast.
Yeah. Shall I read this email from Mitch?
I would love that if you would read the email from Mitch.
We got an email from Mitch. The subject line is Halo greater than math exam. Hey, Mike and Tyler, Mitch here. I was introduced to your podcast last year and found myself binging a significant amount of the episodes. However, for one reason or another, I was distracted away from the sweet, docile tones of Tyler's textbook reading voice, and your podcast was put on the back burner. Apologies. But now I'm back on the hype train and currently working my way through the missed episodes. Anyway, a gaming memory that will always stand out to me is in high school, my friend Steve, who is also an avid Codex listener. Hi, Steve. I planned a night of studying for our data management exam the following morning. However, our 360 was beckoning to us from the corner of the room, and our powerless teenage minds gave into temptation, and we gamed Halo 3 into the wee hours of the morning. We never even cracked the textbook. Mistakes were made, but the fond memory lives on. I was wondering if either of you have ever had a similar moment where a game you loved took over and you lost all track of your responsibilities. Keep up the amazing work, you two. Big booty spider butts. Mitch. Mike, do you have a story?
I do. I really in high school struggled because all my friends were playing WoW, but the game that got me and distracted me was Elder Scrolls Oblivion, because that was the first time I really had a PC game like that on the computer I built, and that was a distraction. That was a big distraction. I stayed up into the wee hours of the morning going through Elven Ruins in that game, just loving it.
Yeah,
even though all the puzzles were super simple, I still those dungeons are have such fond memories for me of the Elder Scrolls Oblivion.
Yeah, I upgraded my graphics card for that game. I upgraded from a Radeon 9600 XT to a GeForce 8800 GTS, and that was like the first time I'd ever had like a GPU that I would consider high end for the time. It wasn't the best GPU you could get, but it was on the upper end, and that felt pretty cool. And like switching those out, putting the GTS in and playing Oblivion is a very fond gaming memory for me. In terms of like time where I lost all track of time playing a game, probably a lot of times, but a specific memory that sticks out to me is my freshman year of college. Somehow, me and the guys on my floor got into, we had been playing a lot of games, old games by emulation. This was in like 2008, okay? And so we were playing Pokemon on an emulator because you could speed it up, and like that was a lot of fun, and we were able to get like hits of nostalgia that way in a quick and satisfying way. We were playing Super Nintendo games. We played a lot of Tetris, Dr. Mario, stuff like that we were like getting really competitive with each other for. But the thing I remember the most is when we played Battletoads for the Sega Genesis on an emulator on my PC. And maybe I've told this story on this podcast before, and if I have, I'm telling it again. So I had a PC that we played it on a monitor that we could all play on. And that's a co-op game for 2 players. And it's harder if you play it with 2 players because there are things you need to like synchronize that you don't have to do if you're playing just one player. And if one of you dies, like it's bad. It's a whole thing. When you play co-op, it's a lot harder. But we played it with 3 players. And Battletoads is a notoriously extremely difficult video game from back in the day, like just really, really hard, especially in the later levels. We played it with 3 players. We had one person solely in charge of save states. So saving the game when we got past a hard part and loading it up again every time we died. And it was so much fun that I think we all switched around who did which role the whole night, but we played that all night. We finished the game, we beat it, and we were extremely disappointed by the ending because it's a very anticlimactic and unsatisfying ending, but we did it. And it's just one of my fondest gaming memories of how we played co-op Battletoads with 3 players, one person solely dedicated to saving and loading save states.
That's an accomplishment, though. I love that.
Yeah, it was so fun.
I also had a thing on my dorm floor freshman year where everyone was playing Counter-Strike Source Gun Game. I got everyone into it, and it was super rad. We had like giant games of like 20 people on this gun game server, and you would kill someone, and then you'd like sprint down the hallway to their room and like pester them and then run back. Super fun. I mean, I still have this problem. Like, I just bought Dredge, that game that just came out on Steam about the fishing H.P. Lovecraft horror. And I didn't play it last night because I had a midnight show last night. And I'm like, if I start playing this now, it's going to be a problem. Like, I still deal with this. Love the email, Mitch. Very good. Tyler, what you been playing?
This week, I finished Metroid Zero Mission on my Mii U Mini. It took me about 3.5 hours of in-game time, probably closer to like 6 hours of not in-game time. By the end, I was doing a lot of save state loading. Not to the point where I would consider it cheating, but just so that I could because when you die and you have to redo stuff you've already done, it's just kind of a waste of time. I don't feel like save states are cheating in that sense. So yeah, I finished that game. That's a pretty short game. And I'm still working on Chain of Memories, the GBA Kingdom Hearts game. Chain of Memories is pretty fun. And I am back on the Crisis Core train as well. So I'm like barreling towards the end of Crisis Core now. I think if I play it tonight, I might finish it before this podcast goes out, actually. So check my Trello board, see if I've moved it over to the done column or not. That's kind of it. Played a little bit of Destiny. Haven't played any WoW in a while. So yeah. What about you? What have you been playing, Mike?
I, on the Steam Spring Sale, had a little, in an effort to have self-control, only bought one thing. Well, it was 2 things technically. I got both of the Doom Eternal expansions for like $10.
Okay.
And so I picked those up again. So I've been playing Doom Eternal, The Ancient Gods Part 1, and it's really hard. Like, it
I gotta
is
play that. I gotta finish
challenging. It's one of those games where when you walk away from it and you kind of forget the skills, it takes a little bit of time to get back into it. And now that I'm back in, I'm all in. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm using a guide to kind of get all the secrets because I like doing that in these games, just getting all the secrets in the Doom Eternal games, and the Doom 2016 was the same way. But I'm having a lot of fun with it. I really like it, and it's just a really fun, fast-paced arcade. It's a boomer shooter. Isn't that what they're called, boomer shooters?
I think they are. I think, yeah. That's a genre that is like relatively new, but I think it's only new in name. I think the genre goes way back.
Yeah, because I love that there's like a renaissance of people making indie versions of Doom-style games. I'm a big fan of that, and I might pick some of those up. I'm really trying to get more back into the indie games thing. I had some distance to it because I worked for that company, and I played a lot of them, and it was fun, but I just kind of took some time off, and now I'm like, there's a lot of cool stuff going on, which is why I bought Dredge, like a fishing-style H.P. Lovecraft management game. That sounds super fun, so yeah, I like these weird things, so that's what I'm doing. But yeah, anyway, if you want to send us an email, the best thing you could do to do anything and do anything for us is to go to codexpodcast.net. You can find our Discords there. Our Trello boards are there. Our Twitters are there. You can send us an email through the site, or you can send us an email at codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. Other than that, that's going to be the episode for the day. Slight note. We have gotten off of history because we were gone for 2 weeks, and now we're kind of getting back on it. We will have a history episode next week. I know we were doing these tier lists, but we will go back to it. I promise. Okay? But with that, Tyler, do you want to say bye to everybody?
Goodbye, everyone.